Have you ever had a race where something so bad happened that the only thing left to do is limp your way back to the pits? I bet you have. I'm here today to tell you to resist the urge to hit escape and just quit, to DNF. While yes, your chance of getting a good position in this race might be over, you still can get something out of it. But let's start this story at the beginning. We are at Monza on Le Mans Ultimate and in the GTEs for a change. And already you can see we're starting quite far back. And that's because qualifying was short and I just had one bad lap and one invalid one, which means we're starting P16. Which probably isn't the worst thing considering it's Monza and we all know Turn 1 Monza carnage, so maybe I can just observe what's happening in front and avoid all of the carnage that's going to happen. No, of course I can't. Of course I am in the position where the only carnage in this race in Turn 1 Monza actually happens. Let's take a look at the replay and watch the Ferrari that's weaving in the background, and you can see there. Not quite sure what happened, if he just went in too fast, if he locked up his brakes, but he definitely lost the car in a way and went into the Ferrari on the right here and then into me. Could I have been a little bit more on the left? Probably. Would that have made a difference? I don't think so. So that means already we are starting off quite bad and are actually now in last place. And also, if you take a look at the bottom right, you'll see that we have damage. A lot of front damage because there's orange there, and then also if you take a look at the triangles on the rear axle, that means that we have damage on the rear axle as well. Luckily, I guess that it's kind of symmetric, so right now I'm not feeling any of that damage, but it is there and it's probably gonna affect the car later on. But at this point, even though it was quite frustrating, I'm like, okay, let's just keep our head down, let's try to still have a good race here, because just giving up because something like this happened, you should never do that. There is still so much can happen in a race like this, even if it's quite a short one, just 18 minutes, there's still quite a bunch to still happen. So you can still have very great racing, even though you're in the back. Like maybe you can gain a lot of positions as well. So let's see what we can do here. So far, I'm still taking it a little bit cautious here because I also don't know how severe the damage is. I'm still trying to feel that out, and I can definitely feel it a little bit, but it's not as bad as I thought. So far so good. But heading into this last turn, we already see yellow flag. And I see that guy spinning there. I was slowing down a little, but not enough. And well, that was quite a bad crash. Let's take a look here. Yeah, nothing I could have done other than to slow down earlier because there was a yellow flag, which I probably should have done. Let's take a look what actually happened here. You can see the Porsche was losing the car, but just went off track. Nothing bad, so bad rejoin. Actually no, he was still off the track and then Ferrari from behind for some reason went so wide that he hit him there. And then yeah, all the carnage unfolded, and now I have even damage on the front axle, and steering rack is definitely not straight anymore. I'm like, okay, this is not worth just continuing. Let's just go to the pits immediately and just see how bad the damage is. How long do I have to repair this? And I take a look here and it's 38 seconds. And then I also realize, oh god damn it, I forgot to also reduce fuel, because now it's also fueling back up to full. And I tried to change it here, it's way too late, fuel is already in, so that's another like at least 6 seconds on top, which at this point probably doesn't even matter, because 38 seconds of damage repair is already bad enough. And at this point, I know I felt the urge to just hit escape and just quit this race, because what is in it for me here? And then I, at least in this time, took a step back and said, no, let's actually continue. Let's just see what happens, because if I quit now, not only do I have a bad race, which just was not fun at all, I don't get any practice in the GTE, and I also lose a bunch of safety rating because I only basically did one lap in which I had at least 2 contacts, and probably something else that the game is gonna will give me as a penalty, and then I will lose a bunch of safety ratings. So I was like, no, I need to gain safety ratings, so let's just continue and let's just see what we still can do. Because also I haven't been driving the GTEs all that much, and it's something that I wanted to get used to a little bit. It's, for me at least, a little bit of a stepping stone towards the definitely more challenging LMP2s and hypercars, because GTEs, contrary to the GT3s, do not have ABS. That's one of the biggest differences between those, so you need to be careful on brakes. And I'm going to show you an example of what happens if you are not later on. But we are now fully repaired. We are also fueled up, which we didn't have to be, but it doesn't matter. And we are quite far back. But you can see, even though I wasn't the only one that was involved in that accident in the last turn, and also in the first turn already there were some people involved, there are at least 2 people already DNF'd. And I'm not one of them. Even though I definitely could have, because as I said in the beginning, this race feels like it's over. Like there's nothing for me to gain. Look at the times in the top left. I'm more than a minute away from the next guy. Because I had to go to the pits and had to repair for such a long time, over a minute, unless someone makes a huge mistake in front, I'm probably not gonna catch anyone. But that shouldn't matter. And at this point, it didn't matter to me. What I was now focusing on was just trying to do as clean and fast of laps as possible, and just try to get used to GTEs again, which, as I said, I haven't driven all that much. And that's what I continue doing, because that's the only thing that now mattered to me. I basically treated this as a practice session, because why not do this in a race where I then also maybe get some safety rating out of it, instead of going on a practice server or even to single player to do practice in the GTEs. I mean, if I'm now in the situation anyway, and I can just do laps with basically no disturbance, why not? And yeah, that's what I'm doing here. And you can see here, this is, I think, my best lap in this race, which we did jump to. I wasn't the fastest in this lobby. There were people that were quite a bit faster than me, but I also wasn't super slow, and you will be able to see that this lap, at least for my skill level, and especially with the GTEs, it's pretty good in my opinion. But yeah, I'm gonna preface this now, because some of you might say this is not a great lap. It definitely isn't. It's a good lap for me. That's what I meant to say here. And yeah, already getting some good times in the first sector, and yes, as also said, getting used to braking without ABS, because that's something that is a skill that you need to learn if you want to transition from the GT3s into the LMP2s and the hypercars, which are even more difficult to drive than this GTE. The GTE is still kind of tame, and you also, I think, at least from my experience, have a lot of leeway with locking up the tires, just because the car isn't as fast. And as long as you're not on the brakes for too long, too hard, then you should probably be fine. And you can see here, gaining quite a bit of time on my previous best lap, even though I mess up a little bit in the last turn here and lose a bunch once again. This lap definitely wasn't perfect. It was the best lap that I was able to do in this race, which, as I said, I treated this as a practice session, and if I had quit, I would have never had this practice. And also, you're gonna see later, this is not the only benefit I'm getting out of this race, even though it's basically over. Now let's quickly take a look what happens if you are not careful enough on the brakes in the GTEs. Here I'm on the brakes too hard for a little bit too long, get a lockup and don't release the brakes fast enough, and then almost spin out completely. I might have even touched the wall a little, I'm not quite sure. This can happen quite fast, and this can happen even faster in the LMP2s and the hypercars. So for me, this is really good practice. And even though I'm the last one on track once this race finishes, and I started at P16, I am now actually finishing in P15 because I stuck it out. I actually kept on driving, while a lot of other people DNF'd. And that not only meant that we finished 15th, which wasn't terrible, I lost some driver rating, but it doesn't matter to me, but I actually did gain safety rating here. And even though we had 2 contacts, probably is quite good that it was only 2 and could have been counted as more by the game. We also had a lot of valid laps, and that meant that overall we still did get something out of this race. And even though it might feel bad to be in a race where you're basically racing for nothing, well, you're also gonna get other races again where things go better. Take a look at this example. This was a race I did afterwards in the GT3s again at Le Mans. I started at P2 and I was kind of looking for a fight with all of the people that I was starting with, because we were all kind of similar in pace at the qualifying, but something happened behind and I'm suddenly way ahead, and I just kept that lead throughout that whole race, and in the end just finished in P1 without any major incidents. And that's something that can happen as well. And even though that might feel quite a lot different, because in the first race I was all the way behind, I was in last position and basically fighting for nothing, but I was still just doing my laps. In this race in the GT3s, I was also kind of racing for nothing. I was on my own in the front all the time with very little pressure, and it was kind of similar in terms of driving. I was just driving my laps, and so the difference really isn't all that great. And that's just something I wanted to also give to you to just think about. Even if you have maybe a bad experience, a crash, or maybe even 2, just go to the pits, repair the damage and still continue the race. It's still good practice to just drive, and also you're not gonna lose a ton of safety rating by quitting the race. So I hope this insight by me helps you out and maybe gives you the motivation to just keep going even if you have a bad start in a race. Let me know down in the comments below what kind of race accidents or just bad things happening in a race you had before and how you dealt with it. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, that would really help me out, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But that's it from me for today. I want to thank you a lot for watching. I've been HD Racing, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.